Zimbabwe, we're living in very interesting times in which David is defeating Goliath. The United States is losing its war against Zimbabwe when it comes to sanctions, together with its allies. And this has worried the United States so much that they're releasing $170 million to continue their forced campaign to support their crimes against humanity with these sanctions, while at the same time continuing to demonize the Zimbabwean government so that they can justify the sanctions that are on the Zimbabwean government. We understand that the money is going to be dispersed to a PR agency that is in the United Kingdom. That PR agency will then disperse it to its people within certain news stations, particularly in South Africa and Kenya, where we find people like Peter Ndoro and Sophie Mukwena receiving their brown envelopes to continue a false narrative on the issue of sanctions. We wrote a letter to the SADC last week warning them that we are going to take legal action about the falsehoods that they have been peddling about Zimbabwean sanctions over the past 20 years unless they retract the falsehoods that they've been giving to the media. And we also have seen a lot of activity from people like Tim Pachedu continuing to advance the narrative of the United States that says the sanctions will not be removed until Zimbabwe begins to implement the Constitution in 2013, and they will not be removed because they are not on the people of Zimbabwe, but they are on targeted individuals. There's a number of problems with that narrative, and I'm going to try and give you a reason why there's a problem with that narrative. First and foremost, the targeted individuals that the United States says it's got sanctions on were never tried in any court or given an opportunity to defend themselves against the charges that they violate human rights. So that means that they are being punished without trial. And according to rules made by the United States itself when it created the UN, is that they created something called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And in that we've got a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights say that nobody can ever be punished without trial. And nobody can be punished without trial upon a law that already existed. So the question is, where did the United States try the people that they are targeting? And what law were they using and which court did they use? That is something that we still need to hear. So the sanctions on the targeted individuals are actually illegal. They are torture, they are persecution, they are crime against humanity because they are extrajudicial. Then we go on to the fact that they say there are no sanctions on the people of Zimbabwe. Zideras on the people of Zimbabwe. Executive Orders 13469 on the people of Zimbabwe. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act is on the people of Zimbabwe, the government of Zimbabwe, parastatals, their banks, their companies, and institutions that give Zimbabweans basic rights and enjoyment of their human rights. So those are on the people of Zimbabwe. That's why the United States Congress Subcommittee on Global Human Rights, Health, and Organization is undertaking an impact assessment of their sanctions in Zimbabwe. They're doing that because they know that their sanctions have an impact on civilians. And until that impact assessment is done, no US official should be able to have an opinion about whether the sanctions affect people or not until we know what the report says. And they've reached out to Poland, said to Poland, can we find ways to negotiate and remove these sanctions that impact civilians? The UN Human Rights Council is also undertaking a similar impact assessment on US, EU, and UK sanctions on Zimbabwe to see the negative impact of those sanctions on the people of Zimbabwe. So even the UN, a multilateral body, knows that the sanctions that are on Zimbabwe are illegal, and this is in their own statement, they are illegal. They violate human rights, if not a crime against humanity, and in the cases of death, could be genocide. And what it is that the UN Human Rights Council's resolution 3413 says is that when the UN has quantified the impact of these sanctions on the people and the impact of these sanctions on civilians, then they must look for remedy, restitution, reparations, compensation. So if the United States government does not remove the sanctions on Zimbabwe, then we are going to undertake legal action. We are going to sue the United States government. We're going to sue their companies that implemented these sanctions. We're also going to sue European and UK companies as well. And we're going to seek compensation. Let me tell you, all the lawyers in the world, now that the UN is in